Breaking news this Thursday afternoon from the NFL. The Bengals giving all-pro defensive end Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. That's the latest from our Jonathan Jones. Hendrickson led the league with 17.5 sacks this last season, runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. He's due $16 million next season, entering the final year of his contract. They tagged T. Higgins. They owe Jamar Chase a record-setting extension. So this is a domino as it affects kind of everything going on with the Cincinnati Bengals right now. Our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, joins us now. JJ, how exactly did we get here?
Yeah, so all offseason, the Bengals have talked about keeping the band together. The Bengals have said publicly that they believe that they could keep Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. The reality has always been that it was going to be very difficult to do that. It was going to be difficult to do that because, one, you're paying Joe Burrow $55 million per year. Two, to secure Jamar Chase, you're going to need to pay him upwards of $35 million per year to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. The two sides are very far apart, about $5 million or so apart. Three, you have T. Higgins, whom you have franchise tagged for a second consecutive year. That's at $26 or so million before you even talk about an extension. And now you have Trey Hendrickson, who is just turned 30. You have gotten him below market value the last 2 years. And frankly, he was due another contract last year, but somehow you got out of that if you're the Bengals. Now he is certainly due a new contract. We mentioned just a bit ago a base salary around $15 million or so. Max Crosby just got $35.5 million in average annual value. This is a first-team All-Pro edge rusher, Trey Hendrickson we're talking about. Just led the league in sacks. You can't tell me, no matter how you feel about Max Crosby, no matter how you feel about Trey Hendrickson, no matter what their ages are, you can't tell me that Max Crosby is $20 million per year more the player that Trey Hendrickson is. So that is where the Cincinnati Bengals are right now in having and hoping to keep all of these guys together. There are real financial ramification, consequences, and circumstances for all of that. Now, you're going to look over from Cincinnati, you're going to look over to Philadelphia, and you're going to say, well, they're making it work. And the Philadelphia Eagles are making it work because they have ownership who is willing to pay and pay guaranteed money. They have a GM who signs guys a year early rather than a year too late, like we just saw with Saquon Barkley, for example, like we've seen with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Cincinnati Bengals do not do that. In fact, they don't guarantee money beyond year one for anyone who is not a quarterback. That's not the way to do business in today's NFL, but that's the way the Cincinnati Bengals do business. They are, by and large, one of the cheapest and certainly one of the cheaper franchises in the NFL when you consider how they do contracts, when you consider where they rank in NFL Players Association report cards, et cetera, et cetera. So it would be too simple, Chris, to say that they don't have the money. All NFL teams have the money. You get $400 million per year just because we broadcast your games. That's what teams get from national revenue from the broadcast deals. But they don't have as much money as others because of the way ownership is there in Cincinnati, because of the way they structure contracts, and these are the problems that are created because of that.
So does this mean that the Bengals are basically deciding to keep Chase and Higgins instead of Hendrickson?
This is essentially that decision. They are in allowing Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. And just because you allow permission to seek a trade does not mean necessarily that he's going somewhere. In this case, I would say it's a little more likely than some of the other guys when you hear that phrase. But yes, that is essentially what this means. It means that the Bengals are choosing to keep Jamar Chase. Okay, that's a pretty good idea. He's a great player, right? And they are choosing to proceed forward with T. Higgins. They're swatting other teams away, Chris, who are inquiring about T. They want to keep this group together. That is the way that that Duke Tobin, and who's the de facto GM of the Bengals, that's sort of the vision of this team. We are going to win with offense. We are going to outscore you, and we'll figure it out on defense very clearly. Look, edge rushers usually don't get better on the other side of 30, and so there is some calculation to this. Man, Trey Hendrickson, yes, you are underpaid at $15 or so million, but can we get up into the 30s? Can we get up into the high 20s for you when all of our internal data and information and analytics tell us that you've probably already had your best years? I think that's sort of the bargain that the Bengals are weighing. And so right now there is a trade that Trey Hendrickson is going to seek out, he and his representation, and I do believe, Chris, that there's going to be a lot of interest around the league.
What are the Bengals going to want in return? What are they going to need in return? And where are the potential landing spots? We know everybody can use them, but what are the most likely?
So in terms of trade compensation to secure Trey Hendrickson, talked with a couple of executives via text earlier, and it actually came back almost unanimous, where it would be the Khalil Mack-like trade. So go back to when Khalil Mack was dealt to the Chargers. The Chargers got Khalil Mack, and really it was about a second-round pick. There was a sixth-round pick involved in there, but for all intents and purposes, let's just say it's the player for a second-round pick. Well, Khalil Mack was also already under contract because Trey Hendrickson, no matter where he gets dealt, will certainly have to get an extension. You're probably going to lessen the trade compensation. So let's just say it's a third-round pick. Go back to last year, Brian Burns got dealt. He was a high second-round pick, but he also got paid. He's also much younger than Trey Hendrickson. So I think probably a fair, you can call it conservative estimate, but probably a fair estimate is if the Bengals can get a high 3, they would love a low 2. But at the end of it, if they are going to deal Trey Hendrickson, it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a high 3 in order to ship him out. Where could he go? Well, there's a number of teams that are going to want a pass rusher of his caliber. I think that you noted that, and just like what we saw in the Super Bowl, there are so many teams that are going to be building in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. A couple of teams that come to mind immediately, obviously the Washington Commanders, obviously the Arizona Cardinals with money to spend, certainly the Carolina Panthers now looking to build defensively. You look at an Atlanta Falcons team that has been trying to figure out its pass rush production from the last couple of years. The list really goes on. If you were in the bottom half of the NFL in terms of sack production, if you were a team that maybe is losing a blue chip pass rusher and want to hang on in that championship window for someone, the Buffalo Bills, for example, we could keep going on and on. It's ultimately going to be who is going to be willing to give to the Cincinnati Bengals a high 3 or a low 2.
Well, he's not a free agent, but if he's available via trade, how does this affect the potential market for edge rushers with free agency beginning next week?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we certainly will see. It's going to set a mark, right, of if he does get dealt before the start of free agency, it's going to set a mark of, okay, here's what it costs. Here is the toll, if you will, to get one of those guys. And so if we see some other edge guys fly around, this could sort of be a watermark for that. So we could see that certainly happen. There's still some uncertainty at the top of the draft about Abdul Carter, the best edge rusher in this draft because of the foot. Will he or won't he get surgery? Right now it seems that he won't be getting surgery. That certainly can change with more information gathered and gleaned during these 30 visits that these top guys are taking right now. So certainly if a deal for Trey Hendrickson can be done and hammered out over the next 6 or so days, it could really lay the foundation for the entire edge rusher market during this first and second wave of free agency.
What a time in the NFL right now. Free agency has not yet begun, but we're less than a week away. Jonathan Jones going on very little sleep as another big name becomes available for a team to trade for. JJ, thank you. Negotiation period, that legal tampering window there opens up on Monday. Free agency begins on Wednesday.